evil, this business of corruption, is hard to see because good people don't have it in their heart to see it, which automatically puts you at a disadvantage against these people. And I know, Amelia, you've been targeted lately, and it's good to have you back on the air. But that's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
You've got to consider this a war. First thing, number one in war is this: cut communications. Isolate your enemy. And it turns out the truth is the enemy of this corruption. And targeting individuals who are telling you the truth, who stand up and try to inform you of what's going on. And you have to see the kind of evil become immediate targets. What I found is that this corrupt entity, and I'm going to get more into that as far as a business, their strength is in their containment. The people that are out there try to under the umbrella of helping you are the enemy. The people you go to for help. For instance, what I want people to understand is this corruption, and listen, this is a business of corruption. This business sells protection. I want you to think for 1 second. For instance, everything what we've known from the mafia, whether it's what we read, what we see in the newspapers, listen, what we see on The Godfather. There's a commonality between it all. What do? They sell protection from themselves. Well, that's a source of income. Well, how do they do that? They control law enforcement. They control judges. Well, this corruption does the same thing. What does it do? Does it sell drugs? Well, this employs and protects drug cartels that sell you drugs. And you know something? That includes the protection on a national level to pharmaceutical companies that are inundating us with opioids. They sell protection to the most evil of us, such as pedophile organizations that I know, Amelia, you deal with. And the reason for your targeting is by exposure. Their number one enemy is exposure. The number one tool for exposure that we've had is the Internet. It became the last bastion of free press. And you know what? They've targeted that. Not only did this corruption target you personally, but they target and they try to shut down. Remember, destroy the message. You destroy the person. And they're out there trying to destroy it. Listen, the drug cartel, the one that I outed, in the billions, run by Dick Aganos, who owns hospitals, treatment centers, hospice care, protected by Senator Gene Shaheen. This is the deep state. It's what they sell. Why do you think most of these Republicans are lawyers? What did law firms and lawyers sell you? Protection. What are they selling you protection from? Themselves. Just like the mafia. And what they do, they shut down my business. They auctioned off my properties. Drug cartel. What you're going through, Amelia, is also a lesson, an abstract lesson to anybody that will stand up and fight back. That lesson is not only do they service containment, not only do they destroy your message, their message then goes on to say, if you want to come forwards, this is what happens to you. So, I know you've been going through quite a bit, but that's how this road goes.
Yeah. It I felt my private conversations, my Skype was hacked by an attorney. My private conversations with my goddaughter with my personal, my friends, the work I do. Everything was undermined. And, everybody can see who these people are. And I think, just like they targeted me, they will forever be branded as well. I'm a humble person, and, I've gone through the court system for, years and years. I mean, it's been over 10 years. And, it's one thing when you're in the child, when your own child and yourself are targeted, and you have to fight the deep state up close, because the targeting, the media, the way that they portray, the traffic, the border, the children at the border that are being taken from their families. There are families on American soil. There are 24 million displaced children on American soil. It's not just children at our border that qualify for these incentives, the American Safe Families Act federal incentives. And, I exposed that. And it's one thing.
See, misdirection is a weapon. So in other words, let's say that our issues are across the border: drugs, children abuse, child abuse. That's not the truth. There's bigger cartels in this country. There's bigger pedophile rings in this country that pay for protection. You see what I'm saying? In other words, it's misinformation. The press followed the money. They say follow the money.
Well, that's the thing. This child trafficking and human trafficking, the targeting is to traffic people, to break them, to make them financially broke, to take away their means of making a living, and to target them, make them homeless, and make them vulnerable to human trafficking. That is the objective. And the money in trafficking human beings is so much money. You can sell a gun one time. You can sell drugs one time, but you can sell a human being over and over again. And that's their apple cart. That with these incentives, the American Safe Families Act incentives, that's their apple cart in Congress,
It's the source of revenue. So if you consider this organization, see, what protects the evil and the corrupt has to be destroyed first before you get to the corrupt. Who, from human trafficking and the money that you're saying that is being generated, and I know this for a fact, just as the money is being generated from drug cartels that's killing tens of thousands of us. Now think about this. How do they get away with it? That's the first question. Just like in business. How do they do this? Okay. Second, well, they would have to pay for protection. Well, that brings us to the next question. Who is powerful enough to protect these entities that sell and abuse children on a massive scale, or sell drugs across this country where now opioids is the leading cause of death, over cancer, over car accidents, opioids? There's your question. So the entity has to be enormous. And the answer is that these entities start in our state. Law firms. Think of law firms as family of the mafia. These law firms, large law firms in each of our states, what they do is they infiltrate your attorney general's office by putting their lawyers in place. Now, what does your attorney general's office do? Well, they protect the state within the state, such as Department of Revenue, in case they're stealing. The banking department, who are just happen to be laundering the money for the corrupt and the drug cartels. See? Education, that's the purpose of stealing. Controlling a network of corrupt judges that are made out of the Attorney General's office. So we're still dealing with the same lawyers, the same law firms, whose primary business and mode of operation is to sell you protection. Now, what's that protection worth if they control law enforcement? That goes right to the FBI. Because you see, the U.S. attorneys who prosecute the cases for the FBI, guess what? They came out of the same AG's office and the same law firms. See, and if you're going to get the DEA to get drug cartels, they have to prosecute them by using the same attorneys. Remember 60 Minutes, big to prosecute? McKesson, the fourth largest corporation in this country, gets bagged by selling opioids with no accountability, too big to prosecute. That's the size of this protection. So in other words, these pedophilia organizations buy protection as the drug cartels. And what we're seeing is the head of this. You're seeing President Trump. Now listen, Republicans and Democrats, I'm not political. I follow corruption. I called out them equally. Now, what happened with Trump was he wasn't a member of this club. I gave him evidence when he was running on the campaign to Corey Lewandowski, who happened to be his campaign manager, so they can't say they don't know, especially when they were using my evidence. They were using my narrative. When they said, play for pay, that was mine. Why do you think Trump comes up and goes, New Hampshire, a drug den? Why does he turn around and say in Virginia, his speech, that corrupt politicians protect these drug cartels? He had that information. And what happened? This deep state, now think about what's happening here, because to grow up through the roots of this and puts the pieces together from the states all the way to the federal government. Well, for instance, Shaheen, not only does she control, Senator Jean Shaheen, the FBI, but she controls and targets with the IRS. They're using our federal government. From the state, they turned this corruption into federally. Now think about this. Trump was targeted by the FBI. Now, what you have to ask yourself is who's controlling the FBI? Well, this deep state. Now, who is the deep state? The deep state are politicians like Senator Jean Shaheen, who those billions of dollars are running through. Her husband's the opioid lobbyist. So the opioid industry is paying him directly. And just as drug cartels, Feinstein from California, her husband is only credited with building $3 billion worth of highway system in the state. Those are the payoffs. That's the money that comes in. They are the deep state. Why they needed Trump out? Because they were afraid that Trump was going to go after them. So you know what? They went after Trump. So now Trump appoints Durham, U.S. Attorney Durham in Connecticut. You know where I'm at right now? I'm in Connecticut, giving my evidence to U.S. Attorney Durham. He wants to know the deep state? I'll give him the deep state. He wants to know who went after Trump? I'll give him who went after Trump. It was the FBI who worked for this deep state. This deep state is in every state through those politicians. That's what they're doing. That's the biggest fear. That's where the war is. We win or lose, I think, in the months to come. And that's why they're attacking exposure. And the grassroots don't think about this. Like you said, you were a mother and a housewife, and I was this philanthropist and also this businessman. But you know something? We both traveled the same road as all the people in between us do. You happened to have the courage and did what you could do with what you had, as I did. You know, I spent tens of millions of dollars on Facebook. Facebook shut down State of Corruption. Why? Because of Bill Shaheen and Senator Jean Shaheen. And then all of a sudden we have Senate hearings regarding Facebook. They're threatening Facebook. You know why? Because they know the mode of operation.
They're also, Facebook is also